Recall that respiration is the exchange of gases between two different substances. And so when we're looking at the lungs, our external respiration, we're looking at the exchange of gases between inspired air, alveolar air, and the blood. And then at the tissues, we're looking at the exchange of gases between the blood and then the body tissues. But let's take a look at sort of the lungs and all the stuff that needs to happen, right? So let's say that our lung is up here and our blood vessel is down here, right? So one of the things that we have to remember is that the lung, the inside of the lung, is surrounded by a thin layer of surfactant, right? That's the thing that helps reduce the surface tension. So we have a surfactant layer, right? Then we have a fluid layer. That's the hypophase, right? That is our fluid layer. So we have a fluid layer. Right? Now, deep to our fluid layer, we have the endothelium, the cells that surround the alveolar space. So this is our endothelial layer. This is endothelium, right? And so our little oxygen molecules sitting up here, okay? And they have to diffuse through all of this stuff, right? And then once they do that, they are going to hit the basement membrane. Remember, all epithelial tissue sets on that basement membrane. I'm going to draw that one thin. Basement membrane. Basement membrane there. Right? And then what we're going to hit is the interstitium. Right? This is sort of our connective tissue layer here. This is the interstitium. Okay? And then on the other side, right, this is our blood vessel. Our blood vessel, right, is going to have a basement membrane, like so. It will have a basement membrane that the endothelium of the blood vessel is going to set on. So here is our endothelium of the blood vessel. And then what we have is our blood vessel space. So that oxygen has to diffuse all the way through that layer, right? And so that is about 1 micrometer thick, right? But that's still a good distance to diffuse, right? And so remember that diffusion was dictated by something called Fick's law of diffusion, or we could calculate it by Fick's law of diffusion. And Fick's law of diffusion basically said that the diffusion rate was equal to the diffusivity constant. So each molecule, based off of its molecular weight, has a diffusivity constant, how big it is. Multiply that by the overall area that it has for diffusion, right? So this would be the sort of like the area, your cross-sectional area, multiplied by the concentration gradient, which is based off of partial pressure. So you have your partial pressure inside of the alveoli and subtract your partial pressure inside of the capillary. Right? And then all of that sort of divided by the distance or thickness. So if this thickness of this distance that it had to diffuse were to increase, right, that would decrease our diffusion rate. So those are sort of things that we have to think about when we're talking about gas exchange across the different surfaces.